when you're in pain, soothing as a springtime rain, to have a friend right in your corner, your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender loving care, tender loving care, each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Tender loving care, tender loving care.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and thank you for joining us on another program of Tender Loving Care. Each week, actually over the past 35 years, we've been talking about this interface between Christianity and medicine. And I don't know why, but I have never had our guest on tonight on before. Phyllis Costin exemplifies tender loving care and everything she does in Buchanan. So thank you, Phyllis, for coming on.
I'm pleased to be here.
Well-
And that was my goal in teaching. And what I've taught teachers, tender loving care is important in the classroom.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I'll start with a personal story because I was in junior high and you were having a reading center at Wesleyan.
Right.
And you had a summer reading program. And I signed up to learn how to read as fast as President Kennedy.
And you did.
And I did. I caught up. I think it was about 1,300 words a minute or
Right.
something. That was my goal.
And you made it.
I had to read 7 words at one time, and then a couple lines at one time, and a whole page after a while. I mean, you had a technique that worked.
Well, you know, we've learned since then. That was in '63. It took till the '80s. And the 80s and 90s are known as the years of the brain, that we discovered that the short-term memory could only hold 7 items. So you have to learn to take a chunk of words, or else the person who reads slowly is a poor comprehender.
Okay.
And people think, I read slow, I'll get it, and that's not true.
No.
But I didn't know that in '63. Just did it because it came naturally.
Yeah, but the brain research
The
caught
brain
up on
research has caught up on that.
that. Wow. Well, you know, tonight, and we want to emphasize this tonight, this is a marvelous book that you have written called Celebration of Success. And you are actually going to be signing this book, and we're going to talk about what's in it. But this Saturday,
This
right?
Saturday at 88 in the lounge as you go into the restaurant.
Okay, from
And,
10:30 till 1:30.
Right.
And of course, if people miss you there, it is available.
We'll have a pile of books there to
Okay.
sell.
And then the gallery on Main Street,
Street.
it's available. The bookstore at Wesleyan.
right.
And
if you need one, Herb and I keep a supply at our house.
okay,
And people have been coming to the house and buying them.
good. And you're in the phone book, so they
Right.
can
Under
check
Herbert.
on Herbert Costin.
Right.
Okay. Well, you know, this is such a wonderful book. I mean, you know, not everyone who has a full career like you had and a tender loving care service to Wesleyan students for a whole generation, not everyone ends up writing a book. But how did you get inspired to do this?
Well, I felt it just kept tugging at my heart that their stories needed told. When I was ready to retire in '98 for the first time, and I thought after that, but I thought now, when I retire next year, I'm gonna write a book about our learning center and what we do, and the
Okay.
students that are in it. But that year, the lady from Marshall, the director of the program at Marshall, her book came out called
Uh-oh.
The Pretender. It was the same thing, and I thought, all right, 10 years from now, I'll see where these kids are. So I really planned it 10 years in advance
Okay.
that I would write it. In
Wow.
the meantime, I taught Christian education, and but by 2009, I taught 46 years at Wesleyan,
My
and
goodness.
I thought it was time for me to bring closure so I could write this story, because I'm the kind of teacher that spends a lot of time
Yeah.
preparing, and I could never prepare and spend the time writing. So
Well, you know,
then I
and-
began writing.
And you have in here, and we want to talk about this in more detail, but story after story of students who would have never been able to go to college if you had not been there and your program had not been there to help them.
We were pioneers. We
Wow.
really were. And these were young people. When they were in elementary school, they were told, "You're stupid." My sister in second grade reads better than you. Even teachers and counselors told them, "You go to college, you must be kidding."
Oh my goodness.
And
What a downer for the
they
kids.
have so many downers, and yet they did succeed. But one of the things I found was it was very important the first semester, and I did all the advising for them at the early years.
Okay.
The first semester to make a schedule that they could succeed, because nothing works like success.
Oh yeah.
And if they could succeed the first semester, they could go through college.
I was talking to one student today, and she's recalling, she's now a senior, but recalling in the beginning at Wesleyan that it was very hard. High school was hard, but Wesleyan was very hard.
That's right.
But she got through, and
Right.
that someone was guiding her through that first semester.
And that's one of the joys of the Learning Center. The Learning Center staff today continues what has been going on for years, and that's that tender, loving care.
Wow. Okay. Now it's unique. Many people wanted to be in this book, right?
Right, I had over 100 surveys back plus phone calls, and I unfortunately just felt it was time to bring closure.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, because some of the stories are just as good, or maybe better, but I just took as it came. And some people who just dropped in campus to say hello, ideal for me to interview them.
Right.
So-
Well, and the president of the college, Pam Balch, I want to just lift up remarks of hers because she started off as an education professor
Right.
at
We
Wesleyan.
were colleagues, in fact.
Okay, and that was in the 70s and
Right.
80s. And she says these are true life stories that tug at your heart and convince you to continue to support programs like this that give students confidence, leadership, academic success, organizational skills, and positive attitudes. And you've done all of that for students.
That was my goal.
Wow. In fact, even the profits of this book go to help students. It goes
it's
to a scholarship fund.
Yes. Most of the money will be for a learning disability student. There's some for this first year that we're finishing the international student who has the scholarship, and then from then on, it'll be for a learning disabled. Herb and I have designated our scholarship for different groups, and so the for the next 5-6 years, it'll be designated to a learning disabled student.
So if someone wants to come down on Main Street at the 88 restaurant on Saturday morning, Phyllis Costin can sign her own book. You can have a copy. You can buy the book there. It's in paperback and hardback.
Right. And as I said, we're not making any money. It all goes back to student.
Wow. Okay.
That's
Well, tell us a little bit about what are some of the stories that you wanted to lift up, and we could lift up and talk all day about it.
Oh, yes.
And maybe we will. Maybe you'll have to come back another time.
Yes, I have about 5 stories. I have more, of course.
Sure.
That I could tell. But I've tried to show, since this is a Christian program, also a relationship through some of these students I've found in writing, how much it was important to them. For instance, one young man, by the way, you might see in the book, each chapter begins with a little biographical sketch.
Okay, right.
On the person. And this one happens to say, Isaac had a dream to become a basketball coach. Isaac's father had a dream. That would be that Isaac would be a doctor. And Isaac fulfilled both dreams.
My goodness, really?
Really. But when I had a hard time, I wanted to find him. He was one that didn't fill the survey. But I will never forget him because he was chairman he was captain of the basketball team.
How about that?
And the coach had called me before his graduation to present his trophy to him. And of course, he was 6'4" or 5, and I was 5. And when I did, he kissed me, and the whole audience laughed.
Wow.
And so that made me think, I've got to find that young man. So I did find him.
Yeah.
And he said, how did you ever find me? But it was through Wesleyan's alumni office and the chaplain's assistant, Debbie Lee.
You know, actually, and I'll just add to that thought by saying that you can tell by reading these stories that the students really love Phil Costin. I mean, they do. You are mother and grandmother and everything to them.
So it's been nice.
Yeah.
But when I finally reached Isaac, he said, how did you reach me? And I told him, and he said, and I told him the project. He said, before I say yes, you are a Christian. And he said, well, I thought so. I hoped he'd know that. But
Yeah.
he said, yes, he said, I was pretty sure. But he said, and I'll only let you write it if you will start it with this Bible verse. And this is the Bible verse from Jeremiah 29:11. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope.
Wow, a future with hope.
And-
You know, and by the way, Phyllis is a good Christian. She's my Sunday school teacher.
Yeah, thank you.
So I've learned a lot under your tutelage.
And I am an ordained minister, and so I really did feel called to write this book. This wasn't just something out of blue. I felt God tugging in my heart.
Right.
I was really working on another project and dropped it to
And
do this.
There's another point we could make here, and you make it in the book, that even though we would say learning disabled or you know, as a disability or as a disease, it also is a gift from God to be different in this way.
I've talked to so many students, and I used the phrase, which many elderly people disagree with me using, but I have used it with students all the time, as a learning difference.
Learning difference, okay.
And it is. These young people, you'll see, are bright young people. They learn a different way.
Right.
Some of them can do things out of the box that neither you or I could do. And they see holistically.
Yeah.
And one young man, his story isn't now, but when I did interview, there was a mall going to be started, certain city, and he went along. His father said, you can come with me, but don't you talk. But he did talk because they asked him. And because he had the vision to see it, they were canceling the mall. But he could see that it could be done because he saw holistically.
Wow. Yeah. So even though you might not be able to read particularly, you can see the whole picture.
Whole picture.
Wow.
That's
Yeah. So
one of them.
that's part of the gift of God. Then.
That is a gift, and
Yeah.
it is an uncommon gift. I was
Well, tell us
talking
another
about
story.
Okay, I want to say one other thing about
Okay,
Isaac,
sure.
if I could.
Oh yeah.
Let's see, that well, he was Afro-American,
Okay.
and when he at 9/11, he was a doctor doing his internship, and he was down at the tryouts, and he said it was the first time in his life that he knew people accepted him as a doctor because of who he was and didn't look at him as a
Wow.
black person. And I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
You know, there's a moment, and none of us should forget these moments, but right after 9/11, we were unified as I've never seen us as a nation.
And he comments on
We're
that.
one people.
To that.
Yeah.
And now he's done the things I said at the beginning. He became a coach. He fulfilled his dad's wish as a doctor. Now he is head of a Christian academy for basketball players
How about that?
in
Wow.
Atlanta, Georgia, which he has started. He's the CEO. He feels this is the time of his life to work with these young people here. So
Wow.
and he feels it as God's calling.
And just to emphasize this, without encouragement by Phil Costin and her staff and Wesleyan College, this young man probably would not have succeeded at all.
That's right.
Who knows where he would be? He might be in prison. We don't know. But
So he really
turned out the other way.
Succeeded. Greenwood, I wanted to tell this story and ask you how you would feel. This is the story of a little second grader whose teacher said, I can't teach you. You disrupt the class. You just sit out in the hall most of the day.
Oh my goodness.
So how would you think she'd
Well,
feel?
I mean, besides horribly rejected, you just would feel so small you could hardly imagine.
That was the beginning
Yeah.
of her education. This must have been a school district that used separation from the class as their way of punishment.
Yeah.
And she had in Spanish class, there were 3 of them that couldn't handle the Spanish. And the teacher said all 3 of them might.
Oh, my
And then
goodness.
she had another experience where they hired a resource teacher who was supposed to know something about LD to teach this girl algebra. They pulled her out of the class. Well, she was so frustrated she couldn't understand a bit of algebra. And she frustrated the teacher. Of course, teachers get frustrated. This teacher was supposed to know something about LD, but obviously didn't, and threw a book at the girl.
Oh, my goodness.
So her school experiences until she came to Westland
Yeah.
were very bad. But she said Westland helped her, taught the thing she liked the best was, we had a study skills course, and we taught, one of the things I tried to teach students was how to learn,
Okay.
and how
Right.
and they looked at themselves. And now today,
Right.
she is, by the way, president of a company.
Right. You know, and
And
this...
teaching, and she teaches a high school program, though, how to learn, kids how to learn.
And by the way, too, each chapter, each person's story here that Phil has recorded, at the end of their little story, they say what their keys to success are.
Yeah.
And they're exactly what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
It would be, don't be discouraged, this one is saying.
Yeah.
There are always other ways to do things. Learn from other people's mistakes. Train yourself. I mean, many of them say exercise. Many of
Right.
them say go to God, trust in
Right.
God.
That's interested me, as I called them, how many trust in God. There's another doctor, he's a physician's assistant now, but he was a young man, and when I had him at Westland, he was goalie of a national soccer team, our first national team.
Wow, okay.
He wanted to go into science, but he had such trouble that because he couldn't keep up, science is so exact.
Yes.
So he said, I have to be able to make money because I'll have a dyslexic son or daughter, and they should go to the school he went to, which was Gow, which cost more than Westland. But he majored in business, but he still had this tug in his heart, and he prayed to be a doctor. And as the years went on, he took graduate work in medicine, did go on, and was very successful. Even wrote an article that was published in England on bone marrow transport.
Oh, my goodness.
Transplants.
Wow.
So he was very
Cutting edge for
of
medical
research.
technology
Yeah.
and research.
And then he had to make a decision. But what interests me is his story. He had to decide. He wanted to go to med school. He was put on a wait list. He heard there were a group of nuns in Chicago who prayed for people. So he went and talked to them, and every Friday he went fishing and took them fresh fish.
Okay.
So the nuns would pray that he got in med school.
And when I was growing up, my mother, who was a good Methodist, but anyway, she would have us eat fish on Friday. I guess the Catholics did that at that time.
So he would do that.
Yeah.
And so, but he began feeling God was calling him to be a physician's assistant. His wife became pregnant, and then he thought, I'm going to be a father. Can I go 4 more years? Can I do this? And or should I be and he asked the nuns to pray for that.
Okay.
And they did, and he got in as a
Wow.
physician's assistant. So that's his story.
And people are telling you the deepest secrets of their heart, aren't they?
They
I
are.
mean, and they're all in this book. I mean, there's many more stories that could be in this book, but if anyone needs inspired, this will inspire you. If you're out there and you may be a child in 3rd grade and you're not doing well, and you write in the book, 4th grade is a big leap for
It
many
is.
students, but you're at that stage and you're not doing well, come talk to Phil Costin
I like
on
to talk.
Saturday.
I talk to people
Yeah.
anytime. They can call me.
Yeah.
Another young man who's very interesting is Mark Dangora. Now, he's a teacher, and if you look through the book, we have a great many who are teachers. Mm-hmm. Why did they become teachers? They
good question.
became
Yeah.
teachers, the majority, fortunately, became teachers because they had a teacher who cared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In fact, I talked about Isaac a few minutes ago and his problem. He didn't know until he was in 10th grade, and this teacher, who from a private school, said he's gifted, had him tested, discovered he was dyslexic. We're all through school, they thought he was a dummy.
Oh, my.
And he worked and was happy to get D's in junior high. Under Thelma, he got A's.
My goodness.
She changed his life. He didn't become a teacher, but so many have stories like that.
Well, if you have a medical issue, and dyslexia is a neurological condition,
Right.
But it's going to gravitate back. You see how it hurt you. You can say, well, maybe I can help someone else.
That's right.
It's like a call on your life,
It's a call.
it?
It's a
Yeah.
call. And I said to you, I wrote these books because of calling. Mark Dangora is an interesting story. He not only is was teacher, but a principal, and he's a cancer survivor.
Oh my goodness!
So that is also interesting. And but his story is interesting. He said it began in kindergarten. He had the feeling he'd get stomach aches every day at kindergarten because he knew he couldn't succeed. First grade, the teacher would walk around the room, and when she'd come to his desk, most of the time she'd slap the ruler on it and tell him how bad his work was.
Oh my!
So this was his first grade experience, and it kept up like that. Well, finally, by the time he was in 7th grade, he developed a way to cope. Now, it's not the way you'd want your grandchildren to cope.
Okay.
He decided he hated to go in one classroom where the teacher would call on you to read in the front of the class, and he couldn't read. And so people would make fun of him. So he would, before he went into class, if he got in there and discovered it was a class where he was going to be called on to read, he had tried to plan what he would do to disrupt the class and be sent to the office. So he spent most of his time in that class being sent to the office because he planned
disruptive. Yeah.
He planned to be disruptive
Oh my.
so that he could.
But now, if you're a parent, and there's a whole section in the back of this book for parents and for teachers,
Right.
and so Phyllis, the teacher, is writing for that too. But if you're a parent and you're hearing these stories, and you see your son or daughter in this situation, they've been called to the principal's office, you've gotten a message home, your child is disruptive, think learning disabled.
Right.
Think dyslexic. Go back and say, I know you're a very bright kid, I know you can do everything, but let's look and find out why you're having trouble right now.
And parents sometimes have to be the advocates and
yes.
ask for their children to be tested.
Yes, yes.
And this is a point in this, the importance to ask. And if the school is busy or they're going to be put on, and sometimes their school is, and they're put on a waiting list and it might be 6 months.
Yeah.
Well then, if you're in the Buchanan area, it may be worth it to go to Morgantown or to Huntington.
Sure.
Each place will do it, and usually have a sliding scale financially.
Right.
But it's worth getting tested because
Right.
it can make a difference of a whole school year if you have to wait 6 months.
Right, and that matters when you're a child. I mean, the whole year matters.
It really does.
We could be our age. 1 year goes by so quickly.
But the other chapter on tips for teachers
Okay,
is mostly written by the students who are teachers in the book.
Okay.
I wrote the beginning and then asked several of them to write their feelings because they not only know how to teach, but they know how it feels to be the dyslexic in their
right.
class.
Yeah.
So I found that was helpful.
Now you are a most persistent lady. I mean, everyone who knows you knows this. You have survived at Wesleyan through numerous presidents, numerous program changes. You were on a mission yourself, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really felt called.
Yeah.
I felt called to write this book and to teach. And I first, though, Greenbrier, felt called to be an ordained minister, which I am now.
Right.
But at the time, the district, and I had a local preacher's license, which was a little different than, it was in Buchanan. I was a student at Wesleyan. I preached. The district superintendent called me and made me feel really good as a preacher, and then said, but you better do something else. The Methodist Church will never ordain you. And I said, well, why?
Wow.
Because he said, you're a woman.
Woman, okay. Yeah.
By the time they were ordaining women, I had gotten, it was just 3 years after that, but I was married, and there were no clergy couples then. So it didn't happen, but I really have felt God called me to teach. And so I accepted that calling. But then the order of deacon came, which is an equal order to the elder, and I'm an ordained deacon whose calling is to teach rather than preach, although I do preach.
Yeah. Now, we have a few minutes to talk about other issues here just for a minute, because we want to say the book is available, though. Celebration of Success, Phyllis Costin, this week, Saturday, 10:30 till 1:30 at the 88 restaurant downtown on Main Street, also at Wesleyan's Bookstore, also at the Arts Gallery on Main Street, and also through Amazon and through Barnes & Noble.
Right. And you get the e-book from them, too.
An e-book there, too. And you have books at your house.
And we're happy to sell them from the house.
Right off of Florida Street.
Right.
So.
And there's one other student, if I have a minute to tell about it.
Sure.
When he was a first grader, he overheard the teacher say to his mother, "He is the dumbest kid. He will never amount to anything." And these words haunted this boy.
My, yes.
You know the teacher was wrong when he graduated cum laude from law school.
Wow.
So I wanted to end with that story.
No, that's a tremendous story. Yeah, I would say that someone who's overcome something like this at an early age actually has a better chance of success in life.
Right.
I mean, if you think about this, whatever you want to do as a parent, or if you're a young person watching, you want to have a challenge in your life. It doesn't have to be that someone has horribly abused you, verbally or otherwise, but you want to have a challenge, don't you?
And this, you mentioned parents. The mother did not believe the teacher. They lived in Evanston, Illinois, not far from Northwestern, and had him tested right away.
Okay.
Found out he had dyslexia and was gifted.
Wow.
How wrong the first grade teacher was.
Yeah. You know what I usually say as a doctor in an office here in Appalachia, we may not have all the testing, but I say, I firmly believe this. Every child is a genius in some way.
I believe that.
I mean, it could be mathematics, it could be music, it could be athletic ability, but we just have to find what that is.
And that's so important, by the way, Greenbrier, if you're working with a child with a learning disability. This is a thing with parents. Find out, let them have a co-activity. And many kids have come to college because they're musically inclined, or sports, or something like that.
Wow, yeah.
And
they're adding to the world because you were there to teach them, and tell them don't give up, right?
Right.
Yeah, Churchill had will save the world. In my opinion, we talk about Mandela, who has just passed away, and Churchill, and a few people like this. But he said, "Never give up, never give up, never give up." You probably have said that many times to your students.
I have one student who the parents will be interested in. She did become a teacher. It was through track that she found her niche. Track star at Wesleyan, became a teacher, met her goal, but then had 4 children, all of whom have learning disabilities.
Wow.
And she is challenged. She has quit teaching in the public school now. But she isn't homeschooling. She wants her children in school, and she helps each of them with their homework and everything.
Wow.
But that's a real challenge, and that can happen because oftentimes learning disability is hereditary.
Right, we learned that. In fact, another syndrome along that line, ADHD, current literature as I read it, is the most inherited trait there is outside of eye color.
Is that right? I hadn't read that. I knew it was.
Yeah. So learning disability runs in the family. Well, I could sit at the feet of a teacher like you for a long time, and I want people to get the book, Celebration of Success. This Saturday would be an ideal time.
Yes, because I'll
10:30 to 1:30. And Phyllis, you'll have to come back another time.
Oh, I'd like to, because there's lots more stories.
Well, great. Until the next time, then, this is Dr. Greenbrier Allman thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Special thanks to Phil.
Thank you.
For
it's
coming
good
on.
to be here.
And for Rodney Irwin and the staff at Channel 3 for allowing us to have our program every week. We'll look forward to more programs next week. Take care.
Stories of a West Virginia Doctor, written by Dr. Harold D. Allman. a collection of 55 short stories about his experience as a small-town doctor in central West Virginia. And Tender Loving Care, Stories from a West Virginia Doctor, Volume 2, written by Dr. Greenbrier Allman, using videotapes to write 70 additional stories of his father's very colorful life as a small-town doctor. They can be found for purchase at Amazon.com and most local bookstores. Tune into Channel 3 Buckhannon for Tender Loving Care with Dr. Greenbrier Allman, where he talks about the connection between Christianity and medicine.